evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is John here from First Response Pest Control. I'm here with my good friend Jeff, and we're bringing you another pest guide today, but not a little bit different because we've talked about there's cold weather, there's warm weather, going into seasons, but today we want to talk about the deadliest, and I mean deadliest vector on the planet. Jeff, how are you, brother?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Not too bad, not too bad. This is interesting. I'm really looking forward to this discussion because I don't think people really appreciate.
No, they really don't think about it. You know, it's funny. I was thinking back on what we used to do because there were a handful of people that, you know, they would bring it up and they would say, and some of them very well informed, you know, these are really dangerous. We shouldn't have them. What can we do? Is there anything you guys can do? And outside of what we used to do is you know, around that one particular property, we'd look for standing water. We'd look for things,
so
you know, but
nobody knows what we're talking about, but you've just given a little sneaky peek at. So guys, what we're talking about is mosquitoes.
Oh yeah.
Right? And as he was talking about getting into that standing water, the mosquitoes are the deadliest vectors on the planet, bar none. But here's the interesting thing, and I don't think people know about this either, Jeff, is that if we didn't have mosquitoes on the planet, there would be no planet.
That's also very true. Yeah. I mean, it's all part of the circle of life.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And I don't know if you remember, did you watch, oh God, what's his name? He was playing the devil. That show.
Oh, well, I remember the movie with George Burns, but that's a different one.
No. Oh God. Lucifer, that was in Netflix and stuff like that, you know, in the current. So Lucifer.
You know what? I never caught that one.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's fantastic. Lucifer plays plays the devil. It's amazing show. It's a long term, it's a series, right? But it's amazing. Right. But there's one part in it where it talks about the mosquitoes and how there's this division, there's this war going on in the heavens between the devil and God and angels and everything else. And then they talk about the mosquitoes, and that's where, and it's interesting because that's what they talk about. If there weren't any mosquitoes in the planet, there would be no planet. But yet,
this is true.
They are the deadliest vectors on the planet.
Yes,
and people, they are. And I noticed like California, you know, you can be by the waterside or anywhere else, and we're kind of swatting away, and there's freaking mosquitoes out. And I know even in Scotland, right? In Scotland, when I was up north of Scotland, I mean, the midges are pretty much what we call them midges, but they're mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Right? And they're a massive problem. But you don't consider that these little things might be carrying some of the deadliest diseases going. And we've had, in America, in the past few years, an increase in yellow fever, dengue fever. We've also had malaria, and we've had West Nile virus.
Yes, the West Nile. That one was big out here a few years back. There was a lot of cases.
From the mosquito.
From mosquitoes.
And you know something, ladies and gentlemen, we talked last year. We did an article last year, and I don't know if we actually did a discussion about it on our talks. I don't think we did, but we did an article on the Asian tiger mosquito because it's an invasive mosquito, it's an invasive species.
Yes.
But West Nile virus was a massive problem in California, all over California in the last 5 years.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's been you know, it's been something on the radar for sure.
And here's another thing that people don't realize. Do you know if you're a pregnant woman, it attracts mosquitoes?
It does. And
so does
not a lot
beer.
of people know that.
They don't know that.
Oh yeah.
Right? And you might think, you know, you're outside and you've got maybe some citronella going and stuff like that and wondering why you've still got mosquitoes. But if you're having a barbecue, guys, and we're sitting there, quite the thing, we've got our cans of beer open, got our bottles of beer open, mosquitoes are drawn to the beer.
That's right. They will. It's the craziest thing.
And you don't know if one of those mosquitoes And of course, it's normally the female mosquito because it's the female that needs to feed blood to feed its young.
Right.
The male mosquitoes, off the top of my head here, Jeff, so correct me if I'm wrong. The male mosquitoes don't bite as such. They don't go for the blood meals because they're normally feeding off, depending on the species, they're normally feeding off nectar and stuff like that. But it's the female anopheline mosquito, the female mosquito, that's the one that has to have the blood meal for its eggs.
Right. For the eggs, yeah, to, feed the young. That's right.
Now, have you
Right.
come across, on all of your cases, have you come across any mosquito problems that have resulted in disease?
So it's funny you mentioned that. I have a client that they're on for pest and mosquito, and this poor gal during the thick of mosquito season can hardly go outside. She's got what they call skeeter syndrome. And so if she gets bit by a mosquito, she also breaks out in hives, had just a
Wow.
terrible time. And with
Wow.
what we've been doing, it's really helped reduce it. But she still takes a lot of precautions. But yeah, I mean, she said, I'll take the massive reduction. I know you guys can't get it 100%, but you know what? I honestly, I can get to and from the door to the car, and 9 times out of 10, I'm fine. She says, I take extra precautions because of my Skeeter syndrome, and it's a real thing. I looked it up, and lo and behold, it's bad. I mean, so not only do you have the bite, but she gets the hives as well and has
That
almost an
must be crazy because
anaphylaxis.
I expect
Yeah.
that drives her nuts.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's just a miserable time for this poor lady, and she's a really nice lady. So she loves the winter because there's really not much going on with mosquito during the winter. They're overwintering. So she loves the winter because she can be outside and
God love
not
her.
worry about being bit up. But during mosquito season, when it's hot, she has to cover up extra and just take additional precautions. She even puts on repellents and various different things, and that's with us doing regular pest control and mosquito around her house. I mean,
So
she got rid of some of her shrubs, a few things.
let's talk about why we can't as pest professionals guarantee to get rid of all mosquitoes. And I think that's important, Jeff, that we say that because people have they have a weird expectation.
Yes.
That's because they expect that in pest control everything's guaranteed, but when it comes down to flying insects, that's another dodgy thing. I mean, it's something that you can't really guarantee. So let's talk a little
Right.
bit about that. Why we can't guarantee that?
Right. I'm glad you mentioned that. So, there could be, and they've got quite a radius that they'll travel because, like you mentioned, they do fly. So, they can travel pretty far, especially on a breezy day.
Yeah,
If they've got a
yeah,
tailwind, that carries them even further.
yeah.
So, you could be in the vicinity of a body of water. Like for instance, a lot of our Santa Clarita people are situated near washes and creeks that just naturally spillways that go through there, and little pockets of water might accumulate along the way. And of course, they become those stagnant ponds that the mosquitoes breed in. Now, there are the county vector control guys out there, and they do their part. They monitor various different areas that they know to be hot spots. They add an aquatic treatment to any standing water that they find in the gutters and in the washes and creeks. They do the what I like to call the QAL type work out there. But meanwhile, they can't get everything. So, what we've always looked at before is, okay, so the QAL guys, those vector control guys, they're out there, they're serving one heck of a function because they're treating the source directly. That's helpful, but they can't find all the sources, and they can't go into people's yards. So if somebody's got an old stack of tires, if somebody's got a bucket that they didn't turn over, and maybe it rained a little bit and it collected that water, and it's situated in a spot that the sun doesn't hit too often to really evaporate all the water out of the bucket, boom, a mosquito breeding site. I mean, I've heard that it can be as small as a bottle cap.
Do you know
um
what? I was waiting. I was waiting for you to say that, right? Because people
yeah.
don't realize it. I've had and all the time that I've been dealing with this as well. I have had people that say, "Well, you know what? I take precautions. I get rid of standing water and stuff like that." And say, "Okay, So you get rid of the standing water that you can see, right?
Yes.
So if you've got, there's a puddle there, or you've got a bucket or something else, but what about the stuff that you're missing? And it's true.
Right.
It only needs a female to lay its eggs in a thimble full of water.
Thimble. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, think about how small a thimble is. I mean, you know,
That's all it
uh,
needs.
wow. And you're right. That makes perfect sense and it totally tracks because what happens is those eggs hatch and then you get the rollers and, the larvae come out and then, they pupate and it all happens rather rapidly.
Yes.
With just a few days, now you have adult mosquitoes that are also looking to breed, mate, create another generation behind them. And so, we've tried a lot of different things. We even at one point, had invested in a backpack fogger, and we went around and
Yeah.
did the fogging around the shrubs and everything like that. The only problem I've ever had, and I mean, I'm old school. I've done a lot of fogging. I did fogging in commercial,
I did in the army.
establishments. Yeah,
Yeah.
an
Swing
Actisol
fog
machine.
machine, get it on there.
Yeah, and you
And
just
we
suit
used to
up and you're
call it
going for it.
we used to call it in the army, we'd have what we call unit dry days. And unit dry days is
Yeah.
when on like and part of the entomology, part of no matter if you were in the jungle or what, you were at a unit dry day, and that would mean that the
Yep.
medics or whatever else would go and would identify standing water or the potential places that deadly mosquitoes could be, and you would treat them. And of course,
That's right.
if you were in a base that you'd built a base in an area, then we would be identifying everywhere. And if there was a problem, the old swing fog would come out. The old ghost,
Oh yeah.
the old Ghostbusters pack on there, and the old
That's
swing
it.
fog
Yeah.
going.
And I
Because
mean
it's
everything
because it
from
is dangerous.
it really is, and everything from, the Actisol machine on on a little dolly that you would take into, let's say
Yeah,
at a restaurant in the middle of the night and fog it. My big beef with fog has always been this. Yes, it's a fast knockdown. Yes, it's very,
that's
effective in its own
exactly.
right, but there's
Don't
no
last.
residual to a
There's no
fog.
exactly. There's no residual for it.
Yeah, and I'm a huge
Just a
fan of the
knockdown.
residual product because I want to know that something that I put in as an application or a treatment long after I've gone home and cracked open that cold beer, it's
Yeah,
still there, it's still working. And so that's
and
why we switched over, once the Into Care buckets became available. And, we read up on how effective they'd been and where they'd been tested and all that good stuff. And, read through the literature and said, okay, let's give these a real life field test ourselves. And
and
for the
that's what
last
I
three
wanted to
years,
ask you, because last year we tested, we had them on some different properties, and so I want to ask you about that because
oh,
there's a lot of organizations, all the other pest control companies will go in and they'll use the fogging machines, and it's just a knockdown. Don't really have that residual. But what
right,
we've been doing is this is you've had some success when we
real
come getting
success.
these down. So let's talk a little bit about what you do and
Yeah.
how it actually impacts the mosquito season.
So I love this Into Care system ever since we started messing with it because we've seen firsthand the results out there, and they're great results. And the way that works is it's so simple, and sometimes simple is best, right? So you fill it up with water. Of course, they're after standing water, but it's got a floater ring inside of it, and the way that it works is the floater ring keeps this netting up and out of the water, and the netting is infused with two different ingredients. One ingredient is an adulticide, and it's a fungal adulticide, and it kills the mosquito, but it takes 3 days. In that 3 day period, it gives them ample time to transfer the larvicide to all nearby breeding sites within their flight radius. So what
I
happens
mean, that's
essentially,
fascinating.
right, you set this one device, you set it up, and you let it keep working day and night, because the mosquitoes, as the sun sets, that's when they're out looking for that blood meal. And so what happens is they're attracted over there to that bucket. They land on the netting because it's vertical in there on that floater ring. It's got a funny looking lid that kind of almost has a cone or a funnel shape to it. But that's beautiful too because as the irrigation, sprinklers and whatnot, water, or if there's a little bit of rain, it just funnels more water
Just
down
runs right
into the
off of it.
bucket, right?
Yeah,
And keeps it up at that fill line. So
yeah.
all the mosquitoes that enter through the sides are now landing on this netting. They're not only killing themselves over the course of 3 days, but they're also making sure that they block the next generation from being able to develop by transmitting that larvicide to areas that we couldn't see, to areas that maybe the vector control guys couldn't see. So these things have been very, very effective and massive reduction. And that's
I think
really
that's
why I like
brilliant
them.
because the
Yeah,
vector control guys are primarily utilizing knockdown insecticides. I mean, that's what they're doing.
that's true.
They're
Yeah, and
spraying
then of
that way.
course
It
the
don't work.
ones that are approved for aquatic application,
Yeah.
and they're great and they're effective and they work. But and a lot of times those are a different type of larvicide. I talked with the guys a little bit that I saw out in the field, and I said, "Hey, what are you doing there?" And he was checking a monitor in a tree, and I said, "Oh, mosquito. Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that. So, what is it that you guys spray on the water?" And he, broke down what they're out there spraying, and he said, "Well, you need to have your QAL, and you gotta, get out there. You have to have the aquatic endorsement, and you get out there and you actually treat, the wet surfaces and the standing water directly with this product." And I said, "Oh, okay." As opposed to, like a general pest guy, like we are, we're not, we're very cautious about that. If we see standing water, we can't really treat the standing water. We don't really shoot anything down the drains in the yard. That's kind of taboo and off limits. We do the perimeter control when we're applying our insecticides, and we, certain ones that we run with, of course, we can hit the shrubs with. You just have to be careful. You don't use something that's, an emulsifiable on the leaves. You don't want to burn the
And also
shrubs.
you've got to take in, and that's something that also we take into consideration as well, is that if families, they've normally got pets, they've normally got dogs and cats and stuff like
Oh
that,
yeah,
and if you start to use that kind of stuff on the plants and the bushes and things, then you've got a problem. But I
yeah.
love this idea of the system that we have is also very ecologically friendly, if you like.
It really is, and that's the thing that's been the best part about it is, some people have, like you said, they have the pets in the yard.
Yeah,
Um, the only precaution I've ever really had to take is to keep them from knocking it over. But I mean, even if they drank the water out of it, the only thing in the water is water.
yeah.
So if they drank the water, it'd be just same as to them drinking out of their water bowl.
Or stop your
Um,
dog going up and peeing up against it.
Yeah, or knocking it over.
Yeah,
If they knock it over and then we go the next month to replace the netting and make sure it's up to the fill line and all that. It may have been knocked over, so then we might, place it in a different spot. We try to keep it in an area that is shaded all the time, and that's just mainly due to the fact that it won't make the product on the netting not work as well. But what it does is it will evaporate the water out of that device a lot faster. So we try to keep it in the shade so it doesn't evaporate. But in the dead middle of summer, I had a few that were down quite a bit, maybe 3/4 down, and we had to replace all that water. And so, that gives us a little insight. Okay, it's been really hot.
yeah.
The water's
You
evaporating
can actually
fast.
measure. You can measure it a bit.
You really can, and so, and then, if you place it just right, let's say it's near where the sprinklers go off, you come and it's somewhere right around that top line, that fill level where it needs to be, and it's self-correcting. It won't overfill or anything like that. But the idea is really to keep that floater ring and that netting right in the zone where when the mosquitoes come in, they love to land on that vertical surface, and they make contact, and you're winning, and they're just doing what they normally do. So whoever dreamed up and concocted this device was really brilliant, really took the time to watch the mosquitoes and how they act,
Yeah.
and then put it to the test, track the results. And honestly, from all the literature that we read before getting into it, and then what we found on our own testing it out in the field, this thing really works as advertised, and that's beautiful.
That's what I want to ask you as well, Jeff. What would you say has been your success rate in reducing the mosquito population in places like Santa Clarita and other places where there's a big mosquito problem?
Yeah.
What would you say in a and just guesstimate, because you're not going to know, but in a percentage wise, how much of a percentage reduction do you feel that you're getting?
I feel we're getting a good 80 to 90%
That's
reduction.
freaking huge. I was going to
And
expect
that's
you to
huge.
say about 50, 60, but
Right.
that's really that high.
Really? Yeah, absolutely.
Huh.
We had people uh, before they got the mosquito device installed, and before we started servicing it on a monthly basis. I took the time, I asked the questions. How many times a day are you being bit by mosquitoes? Oh, I'm being bit 4 or 5 times a day. And then that got reduced by, down to maybe once or twice a week, for the same people
And
that
that's
had the mosquito device. Yeah.
people got to realize as well that it only takes one infected mosquito to bite you once.
Hmm. And then you've got, whatever is carrying.
Whatever
Yeah.
they've, and you got to remember that that female mosquito is also going to be feeding off other animals that would be
Yes.
carrying pathogens and parasites, and
Yes.
they can bite that other animal, and then all of a sudden they come and you're out having the barbecue or whatever it is, and maybe you're lying at night, you've got the window open because it's really hot, and you,
Yeah.
before you know it, I mean, you're not
And
sleeping in a mosquito net. It's one of the things that we had in the army is we always had mosquito nets
the
because we
mosquito nets,
recognized
and
how
it's a tight
dangerous it
mesh.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You take your average window screen, the openings in the average standard window
can't
screen.
stop it.
Yeah, it's not going to stop the mosquitoes from getting through. You need a mosquito net, and that will actually keep the mosquitoes out. But yeah, and anybody
You know
who's
what?
done
It's
any
funny when
camping.
I lived in Florida, in Orlando and Kissimmee, that we had a problem with mosquitoes, and of course, being a
Oh
Scotsman,
yeah.
I've come over. I mean, I know a little bit about it, but
Yeah.
we had window screens, and we had put in, yeah, they kept bugs out and stuff like that, but never kept the mosquitoes out.
Right. So here
And
are
I
all these big
invested. I
bugs.
got mosquito nets because I'm like, no, sod this. I know the dangers that these can, and of course,
There you
you're in
go.
swamp area, so you don't know what they're carrying. So
That's
I mean,
right.
yeah, I got those freaking mosquito nets.
Yeah, and they make all the difference. I was say, we knew about them from times we went camping. You go camping by the lake, you go camping by the river.
Oh, I know.
Sure, it's great. It's summer. It's you're having a great time. But when you go to lay down to go to sleep, you want that mosquito net around your tent, and you want it closed off so that you're not getting chewed alive. If you're sitting out next to the campfire, things can happen, but it's usually not too bad. But I tell you, we always carried the mosquito net to go over our tent, especially in the summer when the mosquitoes were the worst. And when you're by the lake or you're by the river, that's where we got bit up the most. And it just come back, just bites all over you. And it was, well, that's part of camping until we got the mosquito net and noticed a big drop off. So these buckets, I mean, it's fairly new tech, and that's what I always like to see is, is the new stuff coming out? Is it effective? Is it working? Does it do the job it's supposed to do? As every day they're coming out with something new.
Yeah.
Um, and some
Interesting
things
in Scotland.
work.
In
Yeah.
Scotland, they have obviously a massive problem up north, as I said, with the mosquitoes. And at one point, when military were doing training outside in some of the islands off of the coast of Scotland, they actually had to shut down the operations because they couldn't deal with the midges and the mosquitoes. It just was crazy.
Yeah, the
And
midge flies. Oh,
so they would
yeah.
they would they would basically cut them out. But here's the thing that people don't realize as well is that um, these mosquitoes that, and especially like, if we talk about these Asian tiger mosquitoes, they're invasive. All of these mosquitoes are pretty much invasive,
Oh, yes.
and the dangers of them are people don't appreciate how dangerous
Right.
they can actually be. And in Scotland, what they did is they developed a contraption that gave out kind of carbon dioxide because it was mosquitoes are drawn
Oh,
by the CO2. And it was a
okay.
machine, I'm not joking, Jeff, it was a machine that was about yay big, right?
Oh,
And
okay.
it was like a cylinder type machine, not like the ones that we use now at First Response because these are
Right.
obviously more tech, but years ago. And they would rent them out to like hospitals and hotels
Oh.
and places. And you could literally see it emitted this CO2. It attracted the mosquitoes, and it was almost like a vacuum. It just sucked them in, and you could literally open up and see
Oh.
millions of these things just in the bucket loads. And
Wow.
but I mean, they were a pretty penny. Now, obviously, that was back in the day. Things have changed now. Now we've got the small technological thing that we're using that are working, but
Yeah.
it's amazing the amount of problems that you have, and this is how serious it is. Because in Scotland, nobody would think it was a big problem, but it was big enough problem to have massive research on it, and there's massive research in entomology and biological and however they do, I don't even know what the term is in the US, and there's massive research in Sweden. There's massive research in controlling mosquitoes because of how deadly they actually are.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's not just a swamp area or a jungle area type thing. I mean, we have them here in sunny Southern California where you
Wherever
wouldn't
there's
think
water.
you'd have them. Yeah, anywhere there's water, and we all need water to survive.
here's a little interesting tidbit for you guys as well, for those of you guys that are maybe like to watch the survival shows. If you're out and you're surviving in the wilderness and you recognize mosquitoes and other insects, then you're close to water, and that's right. That's where you can go into identify where they're coming from and get water. Of course, that's a total survival skill. To recognize. However, that's not what we're talking about. I just thought we'd give you an extra little tidbit.
But hey, you never know. If you ever find yourself stranded out there, it's a good way to find out where the water is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, there's water about somewhere we can survive. But no, I don't know what the data is, but I know that I know in the eastern United States, and I know in southern there has been some deaths for mosquito-borne illness.
As far as I know, we've been pretty fortunate here. There's been some illness, but nothing major really, as far as like deaths reported or anything like that. But I think, a lot of the time people got in early and that made a big difference, and they got treatment, which helps, and but I mean, the mosquito-borne illnesses, all the ones you mentioned earlier. You got your yellow fever, you got your dengue fever.
A load. There's actually a load. There's a load of illnesses that come from mosquitoes, and I think people are going. And I think we mentioned before, that obviously you're pregnant, that attracts you. That attracts as well, which is a bit of a weird thing, but it does actually happen. But imagine that if you're a young family and you've got a new baby. Dogs and cats and everything aside, if you've got a new young family, you want to protect them from mosquitoes.
Absolutely, you really do. And and then I always tell people the same thing, and it's the way I just have always looked at it. When this became available, the first place I tested it on was my own. Because I thought, for the same reasons you mentioned, I got a family, let's see if it works. The kid loves to play outside, all the time, as much as possible. And, I said, okay, well, I mean, look at what we do. We love being outside too. So I get it, so let's try and mitigate and minimize and, notice the difference right off the bat. So then, that way when people would ask me, what do you think? Should I do it? Would you recommend it? And I said, that's what I have at my house. So, it's funny. What I do on my own home is the equivalent to the Pro Max.
What you recommend?
Right. And that's what I recommend to everybody. Pro Max, you're getting, pest control done on a regular interval, but you're also controlling the rodents in the area with a bait station. And you're also, there's a mosquito bucket down, and you're putting new netting in it every month. And you're making sure it's filled right. And I can always tell how much, especially during the hottest part of the summer, how much other people's buckets might be evaporating off by just kind of eyeballing the one in my yard. So that way I'd kind of gauge it. And, you know what? I'm actually in that neighborhood. It's not their regular day, but I can go over and I can top off that bucket, and I'll be swinging right by there anyway. So that way it doesn't go dry. And we get maximum efficacy. I mean, that's just me. That's the way I would roll. But it's like, I topped off the one at home. Who else has been, they're maybe halfway between, it's 2-3 weeks in, not the full month, not time to really replace the netting or anything like that. But I can go dump, maybe a couple pints of water into it on my way through. If they're there, maybe outside, say hello, catch up a little bit. Oh, what's going on? Well, it's not your regular service day. I'm just bringing your fill back up to the line. Maybe the sprinklers haven't gone on a whole lot. I don't know, but we just want to make sure this is working. And I got a lot of people that said, wow, I was in the neighborhood,
to do it.
And
How
if they're
much,
out front,
Jeff?
it's easy. You don't even have to go in the backyard.
Jeff, how many units do you think? I mean, in an average 2 or 3 bedroom family home with a yard, a fairly decent size, how many units do you think that we should really be looking to put in? Is it 1 unit, 2 units, what, three?
No, I'm
What would you
glad
think?
you mentioned that. So yeah, your average house, and even some of the larger homes, I've had people say maybe we need, two or three of these. The beauty of these, and this is what I always tell them, we can do it. We can put multiple on your property. That's no problem. Um, but one will get the job done. And they said, well, how do you
So you're
figure? And I said,
saving
if
you're
it's
saving the money straight away.
absolutely saving them money straight away. If it's well placed, the mosquitoes will find it. Because you got to remember again that they're coming from, 17 properties over and showing up in your
They're
yard.
looking for a
Right.
source.
They're looking for that source. So they will, almost as if it's a beacon, just kind
Yeah.
of shining, and blinking, eat at Joe's. It's there and they go to it. So it works really well with just the one unit. Now I did have I want to say three different clients that were, absolutely insistent. And so they pay a little bit more and they've, one's got 2 units, and the other two have 3 units.
Wow.
And honestly, I'd say the results are about the same with 1 unit as it is with three.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So,
save your
I
money,
tell
guys.
everybody
I mean,
else,
it's worth it
yeah,
just getting it done. Now, before we finish off, I
yeah,
want to talk about, because there's certain areas that we go to are very much rural type areas. So I want to talk
yes,
about the mosquito problems in rural areas, because obviously we have cow troughs, horse troughs. There is, even trying to get rid of it, there is going to be standing water. So
there really
for some
is.
of the ranches and things like that, how would you recommend that ranches in the area deal with mosquito problems?
So I'm glad you mentioned that. So, if you have the ones that have the troughs or the tubs or even, the plastic barrels sawed in half for watering your horses and your cows and things like that. I would say, once, twice a week, especially in the summertime, you want to clean them anyways because you don't want that algae to build up. That can actually be bad for the animals too. Well, cows, not so much. They can eat just about anything. They can eat moldy hay. Cows, nothing really gets to a cow. But I would still clean out those water receptacles. What I've noticed a few of them have going out this way that's just phenomenal is they have the automatic waters. There's never enough water in those to really stagnate or stand
Yeah.
stagnant, which is great. And then also what you can do, and the horses usually do it themselves, just playing around in the water because they like to swish the water around in their
Yeah.
teeth and everything. Well, that just push the water out of it, make sure if there's any dirt or whatever that accumulates in the bottom, and that's just to keep it clean. But it never really, and a lot of times they're metal, which is nice because the algae doesn't grow very well on the metal. So those I would say, worth their
And
weight
what
in
about
gold.
what about having mosquito treatment? What about putting in the mosquito buckets or systems into what in ranches? I mean, is that something that we should
Absolutely.
be doing as well?
Absolutely. I would definitely recommend at least 1 unit. I mean, depending on the size of the ranch, we do service one ranch. They've got the main house, they've got a nice little guest house, they've got a pool area, and then they've got about, I want to say, 15 acres behind. And it's all, barns and turnout arenas and, performance arena type arenas and stuff. But there's I want to say probably 6 or 7 barns on there, each with maybe, 8 to 10 stalls. And then they've got, a pig pen off to one side where they've got some, hogs. And then they've got another area in the back where they have a bunch of cows, anything from the longhorns to dairy cows to, various different types of cows. So it's a real ranch. You go there and you see all the different animals. That one, we've got basically we're keeping it nailed down on the mosquito front with 2 devices, and they're strategically placed. One is up near the house, the guest house, pool area. It's kind of all
Mm.
connected up there, and it's tucked away nice and neat under the shrubs, right out in front in the front yard. And the other one is located right next to. There's they've got kind of these sheds that are big tough sheds that are kind of for storing tack and grain and all
Yeah.
that stuff, and it's situated right in between them in such a way that the sun doesn't really hit it and it stays in the shade between the 2 buildings.
And it
So
attracts them. It
it's
attracts
working.
them, and that reduces a massive risk and reduces the mosquito population there, which doesn't affect your animals, and also is a
Right.
safe area as well because that's where it could be rife.
Right, exactly. And so for us, we know where they're at. We go when we do our regular service and we're treating around all the key areas. We go hit the bucket, hit the other bucket, and everything's good. It's all filled, the new netting, we're good. All right, we're solid for another month, and out we go. And I talked to that rancher. On average, I bump into him there every other month. When we're going there and hitting him on a monthly basis. And he said these things, whatever they did to figure out how to make these things work, they have been a godsend. He said, I was getting chewed up left and right. So even
Yeah,
with my long sleeve shirts on, I was getting chewed
the,
up. He said, they were getting me through the fabric. And I said, yeah, well, yeah, some of these guys do.
yeah.
And he said, but yeah, now I get a bite here and there. And I don't even know if it's even a mosquito bite. It could have been
I love that.
one of the flea
Yeah,
bites from one of my dogs, maybe picked up fleas
yeah,
running out where he shouldn't have been. But yeah, and I said, well, if you get fleas, we can deal with that too. But it hasn't really become an issue. And I always thought, just check the dogs. He's got like 4 of them. So I said, just
yeah,
check the dogs. And if they're scratching a lot, then maybe check them a little closer and see if you can find any little black dots hopping around on them. But I said, honestly, during the hot summer, I would say that the 1 or 2 bites you're getting every other week,
that's good.
yeah, it's probably still mosquito. We
That's
can't 100% them, but hey, if it's reduced that much, I'm
that's
a fan.
massive.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming to the end of it. Jeff, it's been awesome. We could talk about mosquito because obviously
Oh,
it's really
so
really
much to talk
important.
about.
And I would say to you, ladies and gentlemen, look, this is the time now. This is the time before the real season starts. We're getting into the spring season. Yes,
Yep.
we still have cold days, but we're now starting to get warmer days. They're building up. They're building up. Soon,
Yep.
mosquitoes are going to be everywhere. Start now. Get those systems in place. And like
Yeah.
Jeff said, you don't need 3. If you want 3, he'll put 3 in, but he's going to save you money. 1's enough, right? But
Yeah.
get
One
them
will do the
done now
trick.
so that
Yeah.
you can be protected from mosquitoes through the season. Because
Yeah.
remember, they are the deadliest
They
vectors
really are.
on the planet.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, mosquito season for us, we started in March, and so all the folks who are already on mosquito service, we're going to
They're
be doing.
protected.
Yeah, they're good. We're going to get them going as early as March, but
Jump on
somewhere
now, guys. Jump
between
on.
mid-March and in mid-April, it'll be like somebody just flipped the switch on and opened the floodgates, and all these mosquitoes came out of nowhere. But they weren't coming out of nowhere; they were here. They're just
They were,
overwintering, but
as
they're
as
getting
we
ready.
said, they were overwintering, and as
Yep.
the warmer weather comes up, they're going to start to come out of their hibernation. They come out of their overwintering. So start now, and
Yeah, and we're going to
remember,
be in the 70s next week. I mean, it's
that's
already
what I mean.
starting.
That's is going to start kicking off. So think about it this way.
Yeah,
And guys, if you've enjoyed this episode, then make sure that you message us and you say, hey, I listened to the episode, and Jeff and Ash, they'll give you a discount. You'll get a discount from
that's right.
regular service. If you sign up for regular service with us for mosquito, for regular pest control, then we'll get you a discount, no problem, because you want to start now before it's too
Yeah,
late, because we're going to be flat out in the season. You don't want to be having to just try and squeeze things in because you've left it too late and you've got a problem. Start now,
right.
guys. Let's just be proactive, not
Yeah, we
reactive.
get out
Let's
in
start
front
now.
of it. Now's a good time. And like Jock said, yeah, discount, absolutely, for
Yeah.
being proactive. And you're really, not only you're saving a few bucks, but you're saving
Yeah.
yourself a lot of headaches because people, I don't think, realize what gets mitigated by the 1 or 2 services in, but
Yeah.
it makes such a huge difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jeff, as always, my friend, it's been awesome. Guys, reach out to us. FirstResponsePC.com. Get in touch with us. You can book direct on the site. You can phone us, message us, and we'll help you as much as we can. You can ask any questions as well. That's what we're here for. But
That's right.
take it seriously. Mosquitoes, as we said, they're deadly, and
That's right.
we've got Asian tiger mosquitoes. They're big mosquitoes, right? They're like Scottish ones. They come with a kilt and a claymore, and they come with a kilt and a claymore. They're ready to do battle. But remember that the dangers are real. And West Nile virus
Yes.
is a big problem, and it's massive. So protect yourself, protect your children, protect your pets, protect your home. Get the mosquito systems in now.
Yeah.
God bless, guys. See you in the next one.